Good morning. My name is Samantha Murray, and I'm the Executive Director in the Master of Advanced Studies program in Marine Biodiversity and Conservation. For those who are watching, welcome. Thank you for joining us on World Ocean Day. We know there are many competing virtual events today, and we're grateful you've decided to join us. We're here today to learn about the work of our 22 master's students and what they've done over the course of their time here at Scripps. Please know you can find us here all day, so feel free to pop in and out as you're available, or just keep us on in the background as you go about your day. We've learned many things over the course of the year, and we want to share them with you today. The work that you'll hear about today is innovative, relevant, and interdisciplinary. That's not only because our program allows students to look at marine conservation through the lenses of science, policy, social justice, and economics, together in a groundbreaking and realistic way, but also because our students were professionals in their own right before they came to Scripps. They are educators, artists, scientists, journalists, advocates, executive directors, entrepreneurs, filmmakers, landscape architects, photographers, Peace Corps volunteers, economists, NGO founders, and criminologists. We see these varied backgrounds as experiential assets that allow us to better innovate, reimagine, and create together. And the sky is truly the limit in terms of imagining solutions to ocean and coastal challenges, where our program allows students to incubate, dive in, and pursue quite literally any kind of project they want, as long as it will add value to the current marine conservation landscape. So today you will hear about the business plans, papers, films, story maps, books, artistic prints, and manuscripts our students have created, which will pave the way for future PhDs, NGOs, for-profit businesses, fellowships, and more. This year, the world faced an unprecedented common challenge in novel coronavirus and COVID-19. This global pandemic and public health crisis has changed every facet of our lives and will continue to do so into the future. We want to acknowledge that challenge faced by our 22 graduating students, as well as by hundreds of millions of other university students around the world. It has changed the way they are able to learn, interact with professors and mentors, and exchange ideas with one another. For our students completing a 12-month experiential program, it has a profound effect on their academic year and indeed their capstone projects. So to our students, we are proud of the flexibility and adaptability that you demonstrated in pivoting to the new master's projects that could be conducted under quarantine. And we are impressed with the substantial work you've accomplished in the face of these obstacles. At the same time, we continue to face a 400-year-old challenge that isn't new at all. In this moment, we acknowledge and stand against pervasive racism, white supremacy, violence against Black communities, and the silencing of marginalized communities. The collective response to these realities has been inspiring, but we recognize it will take sustained effort to make tangible gains toward equality and justice for Black, Indigenous, and people of color. We see the privilege and whiteness in the ocean conservation movement, and within the master's program we lead, we also notice and acknowledge our own whiteness and positionality within that movement. We know that policies are more just and have more equitable impacts when leaders of color have a seat at the table as decision makers and equals, meaningfully engaged in crafting those policies. And we are committed to leveraging our spheres of influence and to demonstrating and practicing diversity and inclusion in action in both visible and internal ways within our master's program. We want to have the difficult conversations that push us to be better allies, better leaders, and better stewards of this planet. We too want to see more leaders of color in the field of marine conservation. So for those who may be watching this, who have a passion for ocean or coastal protection and have a dream of becoming a leader in this community and need the training to get there, we invite you to learn with us, to teach us, and to grow together with us as we navigate these uncomfortable issues in deeply unsettling times. We want you here, and there is a seat for you at this table. To the 22 students who are graduating this week, we see you. We see the work you have done this year and the effort you have put into your work against an impossibly difficult backdrop in an extraordinary moment. The world needs inclusive ocean leaders like you, and we know you take seriously your responsibility as global citizens who speak up for justice. Indeed, your work here on marine conservation is important, and it matters. So this is where it starts for our 22 graduating students. This here is the view from Eckhart here at Scripps. It's where students work on GIS projects, where they learn R, make films, practice their presentations, and write their papers. It's where we house our interdisciplinary master's program in marine biodiversity and conservation. And it's where our students met 12 months ago. And here they are, arriving just 12 months ago. This is outside at Torrey Pines State Beach for their first field trip with the program. They're without masks, without sanitizer, within 6 feet of each other, ready to become intimately acquainted with each other and learn from each other. Torrey Pines is where we go to study geology, ecology, history, and climate with Dr. Dick Norris. It's where we learn what the world was like hundreds of millions of years ago and how it has changed over time, both without and with the influence of humans. Our students have spent time at sea on the RV Gordon Sproul in order to get their sea legs, operate a winch, and learn their way around a working boat, to understand fieldwork using an A-frame and a multi-core sampler, and to experiment with biodiversity sampling using trawl nets. They've learned about deep sea systems off of San Diego with deep ocean biodiversity expert Dr. Greg Rouse to get a better understanding of what lives deep below the surface and the tree of life. They've compared life above the oxygen minimum zone at 200 meters with life below the oxygen minimum zone at 1,000 meters. They've measured diversity, abundance, species number, and richness. And they learned about the phronema, which was the critter that inspired the movie Alien, and experimented with the purifying qualities of deep-sea mud masks as well. They learned about wetland ecology from Dr. Lisa Levin, an expert in wetland restoration. They learned about invasive species and sea level rise and how our wetlands have also changed over time. So yes, they learned about the biology, the ecology, and the economics and the laws. And they also learned about science communication, which they'll showcase today. Because at the end of the day, if you don't have this, it doesn't matter. And this may not look like science communication in action, but you're seeing improv practice with Dr. Andy Nozel. You're seeing time with their filmmaking mentors, Nate Dappin and Neil Lozen from Days Edge Productions, and time editing video in the lab. Our students learn to speak with authority and credibility in professional settings, to explain complicated issues in an understandable way, to make films and tell stories in ways that resonate, to captivate an audience's attention and engage them. This communication training is probably the single most unique aspect of our program, and it's one we reinforce again and again throughout the year. We'll be showcasing this today, where you'll hear about a lot of different complex marine conservation issues, from plankton in Antarctica to local seafood in San Diego. Our students have met so many people along the way over the last 12 months. Panels on catch shares in fisheries, ethics in conservation, and seafood in California. Our hope is that hearing firsthand from a broad variety of perspectives will open minds as well as doors as students think about next steps in their careers. And then there is our annual trip to Catalina, where we spend a lot of time studying kelp, as it turns out. Dr. Jen Smith is not only the co-chair of our program and a renowned coral reef ecologist, but also a phycology expert and a pressed kelp expert. So you can see you can see here students getting more familiar with their artistic sensibilities, pressing kelp, thanks to Jen. We get our feet wet with field work at Catalina, swimming snorkel transects and practicing algae ID and fish ID. We also do a plankton tow both during the day and at night. But Catalina is also about art, so we draw what we see in the ocean. Thanks, Greg. And we continue to learn from Dr. Dick Norris, geology expert. Here we learned about the geology and genesis of California and Catalina Island. And of course, we also learned about crap data, if you remember that, students. Thanks, Dick. So there are many other memorable times at Catalina, too, where we spend a week over the summer. In addition to dancing, not shown here, lizarding and extreme lounging, and of course, Jake's unforgettable impression of Dick Norris. We do manage to have some fun during the program over the course of 12 months, as intense as it is. So to our graduating students, in the end, this is how we'll remember your time in this program. We hope it's also how you'll look back on it. But this is real too. And for now, just remember that what you do after the program, when you're the next generation of colleagues and ocean leaders, it will matter. You will lead in federal and state agencies, as entrepreneurs, in NGOs, as science communicators, in academia, in US Congress and the US executive branch, and at foundations and in countries abroad. You will exert your own influence to support a world that is more inclusive, more equitable, more just, more inhabitable, and more livable for all for future generations. And that will matter. But for today, we want to hear what you've learned over the last year. Before we begin our program, I want to remind you that you can look at the banner down below to email or text your questions in, and we will ask those questions in real time of students. But I also want to take a moment to thank some of the folks who make this program possible. Thank you to the PhD students who mentor our students, to the individuals and external organizations who travel to La Jolla, work with and guide our students from outside UCSD and SIO. The Scripps Department, especially Denise Darling, Maureen McGreevy, Josh Reeves, Tim DeBold, Shelley Weisel, Chair Peter Franks, Sarah Gilly, and Lisa Adams for their support. Penny Dockery, who makes the summer program what it is, Dick Norris, Stuart Sandin, Greg Rouse, Christian McDonald, Octavio Alberto, Dale Squires, Joel Watson, Lisa Levin, Sarah Mesnick, Sarah McDonald, and all the faculty at UCSD and Scripps who spend time with and mentor our students. I also want to thank our communications consultant, Steve Bennett, for his tireless work with students, and Vice Chancellor Margaret Leinen and Assistant Vice Chancellor Patrick Callahan for their support in approving this live broadcast. I want to thank Lara Sievert, Donna Schabke, and Romy Apostle for their support in executing this socially distanced live event from Scripps, and Dr. Jen Smith and Dr. Mark Jacobson, who are the faculty co-chairs of this program. They support and advise our students tirelessly, and we wouldn't be here without them. I also want to thank Risa Farrell for being an absolute pillar in supporting and advising our students, working in partnership with me, and for keeping the trains running on time. And of course, I want to thank the students themselves for choosing our program, having great ideas, sticking with them, and for sharing them with us today. Thank you.